Here today with Coach Mike Jackson of the Grand Oaks Grizzlies. How you doing today, Coach?
Hey, I am great. It is a great day to be a Grizzly, so glad to be with you.
Welcome in, Coach. One of the things I'm trying to do with the series of interviews is talk with coaches, is kind of demonstrate the almost transient nature of a coach of high school sports. So if you don't mind, um, take us through your coaching career, where you've been for your coaching career.
Well, every coach, and you're exactly right. I mean, the nature of our business, you've got people like Tom Nolan that stayed at Lamar for, 3 decades, but by and large, the nature of our business is to be transient. Um, I am a little bit different than the norm. And I say that because I've never been an assistant coach. And so my joke has always been, Tony, if I can get out of this profession without ever having been an assistant, that means I never got fired. And that's obviously a good thing if you can make it that way. So tracing my path, I started I went to St. Edward's University, and then got my master's in athletic administration at Southwest Texas. Back then it was Southwest Texas, now Texas State. My first job was at Shiner St. Paul High School in 1991. I was the athletic director, head football coach, head girls basketball coach, head softball coach, head track coach, head powerlifting coach, and I taught 5 preps. And I think I was making $20,000 a year. So that kind of shows you where that was at, but loved it. I mean, was foolish enough to think I was ready to be a head coach at that time, and I was lucky enough that they hired me. And our second year, we won the TAPS state championship. So I was there 2 years. We won state. I moved on as the head football coach and athletic coordinator at St. Pius High School here in Houston. Great program, great tradition. Obviously Gary Kubiak came through there. Loved it there. Was there 3 years. My first year there, we won the state championship there. So there was a 2-year period in my career where everything I touched was kind of turning to gold. I thought, man, this whole coaching thing is easy. I don't mean that. That's a joke, but it was a great run right there to come in, and there were great kids. And so we were there 3 years, and my last 2 years there, we were beating the semifinals. But that was 5 years in the private school. And I always said that if St. Pius was a public school, I probably never would have left. I probably would have been one of those guys that stayed in one place for 30 years because I loved it at St. Pius. But my first public school job, I was 27 years old, and I went down to Corpus Christi, and I was the athletic director, head football coach in Robstown. It was not a great football job. And, but the 2 people I consulted before I took this job were the 2 men I played for in high school, Ernie Starnes and James Pullen at C.E. King. And both of them said, you at the 2 places you've been in the private schools, you've done really what you can do. So you're either going to need to stay in the private schools, or you're going to have to take a job that you may get beat a little bit. And I was spoiled. I think I came out of the private schools with a record of like 43 wins, 14 losses, and 4 ties. So obviously I was used to winning. I promptly went to Robstown in 96 and lost my first 9 games. So I got an education real fast about what the other side looks like. And that taught me a great lesson right there at a young age, that this profession is cyclical. I mean, it's all about karma, and it's all about be careful about what you're doing now and the way that you're conducting yourself now, because it all goes full circle in our profession. But I was there 2 years. Our second year, we were better, and we were able to win some games, and I was able to get the athletic director head football job at Charlotte, which was a 2A school at the time. So I was going from 4A to 2A. Now remember, there was no 6A, so you bump everything up. It's like going from 5A to 3A now. Smaller school, but I felt like I could win, and that was the whole. So when I speak at clinics, sometimes I'm asked, because I've been a head coach so long, to talk about career paths and things like that. Well, one of the things you always have to do is think a step ahead. And so when you take the Robstown job at that point in the mid 90s, I'm thinking, all right, if I do great, yeah, you can get another 4A job, or you build this into something that you can stay at. But if you don't, you can probably still drop down to a smaller school and win there. And a wise coach once told me, and I say wise in Phil Danaher, who's about as wise as it gets with wins and losses. It's not about the A's, it's about the W's. So right now I'm at a 6A school. That's great, but it feels just as good to win a football game in a 2A school as it does a 6A school. So in '98, I took the job at Charlotte High School. I was there 4 years, and we had a great run. Great run. I think we went to the third round first year. We went to the fourth round the second year, played in the Astrodome, and of course, I'm of the age where that was a big deal growing up in Houston to be in the Astrodome at any time. So we ended up playing the Bartlett Bulldogs in 1999 in the Astrodome, and they beat us. They went on to win state a couple of weeks later. But for a little town like that to go down to the Dome, that was big time. So I was there 4 years. Again, had a great run, and then in 2001. By that time I finished my second master's, and it was just getting some hours on top of it for my mid-management, and I'd finished my doctorate. And my plan originally was to coach for however long and then to become a superintendent. And so my dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2001, and I came home in the spring of 2002, or in June, once the school year's over, after my fourth year at Charlotte. And I became a principal for 18 months. And my dad was in treatment downtown at the medical center. And then that shows you how, I always laugh, it shows you how much coaches work when you can become a principal and have more time to spend with your father than you can as a head football coach and athletic director. It was the most miserable 18 months of my life for two reasons. One, because my father was sick, and two, because I learned there, and Tony, I think we're all a product of an environment where we're growing and learning about ourselves all the time. And in that period of my life, what I learned is I'm supposed to be on the sideline. I'm not supposed to be a superintendent. I'm not supposed to be an athletic director of a district. I'm supposed to be coaching football. And my wife, we were at the point where we were getting married, and I remember her telling me, if you don't get back into football, I'm not going to marry you because you're miserable and you're miserable to be around. So after 18 months as a principal, I went back into football, and I went into HISD, and I said, I grew up in the suburbs of Houston, and I said, I'm never going to be in HISD, and I would never work there. And you know what? Lo and behold, that's what I had to do to come back as a head coach. And I felt like I had a good record then, but the reality of the situation is I wasn't coaching. I was a principal. So it was going to take a leap of faith for somebody to hire somebody that wasn't even in the game yet, or go back as an assistant coach. So I was hired at Milby High School. They were 1-39 the previous 4 years before I took the job. I was there 2 years. We were 8-12, and that doesn't. Well, 8-12 certainly is not a great record. It was enough where there was a new school built, Chavez, right down the road that had really good facilities for the time. They had built Chavez and Westside on either side of Houston, but they weren't winning. And I was asked to transfer over there because we were having success at Milby, and we had raised the numbers from whatever it was to when we left, we were running 4 teams. And of course, a mile and a half down the road, that was an easy sell for me. So I was transferred to Chavez, and I spent the next 5 years there and had a great time. Made the playoffs every year. First 5 years they made the playoffs. Had a winning season every year. It was just, you were fighting against other, we were 5A at the time, which is 6A now. You were playing programs like Atascocita and Humble and places like that it was, you didn't have the same resources, but man, you learned how to get it done. And we had good kids. We had great skill kids. Didn't have a lot of linemen, but we had great skill kids. And during that time, I really got into 7-on-7, and we started a run where we were in the 7-on-7. We made it to the state tournament my last 3 or 4 years in a row at Chavez, because we did have really good skill kids. And, I look back on that time. If I told you now that in 2009, Chavez and Atascocita played in the first round of the playoffs, and Atascocita beat us 43-37 in overtime, you would just, wow, and Atascocita, now obviously they're better than they were then, but they were still pretty good back then. And so I had a bunch of coaches that stayed with me through that. That's where I felt like we really had an edge. There's so much turnover in there in the inner city, and I had really good guys. And they stuck with me, and we won a lot of ball games. And consequently, I had moved down to League City, and I was commuting. It was about 12 miles north, and Lamarck High School came open, and it was one where you knew it was certainly not the Lamarck of old. And you knew that the enrollment was going down, and you knew that there were a lot of problems. But I also felt like I'm going to go in there and I'm going to win football games. And I feel like I'm organized, and I demand enough discipline that if you go in there and you teach kids not to beat themselves, that you can win football games. And I'm just like anybody else. I want to win a state title. And one of my goals has always been, I wanted to win a state title in the private school, which I have 2 of them, and I wanted to win a state title in the public school, which I have yet to do. But I felt like that was obviously, if you could get lightning in a bottle, you may be able to do that. So went to Lamarck in April of 2011, and I was there 7 years, and it was a tough 7 years. I went through 6 superintendents, 6 principals, a TDA annexation. It was tough. And having said all that, we won a heck of a lot of ball games, 64-23 my 7 years there. And when I say we had more resources at Chavez than we did at Lamarck, just because they were out of money. But there were great kids that got after it, that they were hungry for discipline. And again, we had great coaches. I had great men come through and work with me, many of whom went on to become head coaches. So, went to the quarters there a couple of years, third round a couple of years. And, you think back in the 90s or early 2000s, well, that's just a normal day at Lamarck. If you look now at their recent history, that's certainly not a normal day. One of the things I'm very proud of is, we're the last group to win a playoff game at Lamarck. And it got to where by the end of it was hard. But I felt like you could still win. And my goal all along was I was gonna stay at Lamarck until I retired. And I felt like with the annexation with TCISD, and we were right there in League City, and our kids were happy, everything, I was content. And then this job came open, and I think every coach likes the idea of the challenge of building something from the ground up. And as you and I were alluding to before we started recording this, I knew coming into Grand Oaks, this is not Shadow Creek. This is not Bridgeland. We're not breaking off from Manville, or we're not breaking off from Cy Ranch. This is something that when we were interviewing people, we were very deliberate that this is going to be a hard build, and this is not going to be an overnight thing. And, so I feel like we played 2 years of independent, and then we've played 2 years of 6A, and we've done very well. And what we've got to do, we've got to learn now to break through and kick the door down, because the last 2 years we're in there on the last week coming in to get in and make some noise in the playoffs. But it's building. It's building up where you have to be, and our talent's bubbling up. Our freshman Group 1 district this year, we have good young players. But you and I both know it's a me society, and it's a what have you done for me right now society. Everybody wants everything right now, and nobody wants to build it and do it the right way with 7-on-7 select and all this stuff. Now everybody wants to jump around and try to emulate the Golden State Warriors and build a super team. And I'm not here to recruit a program. I'm here to build a program, and that's what we're doing, and we're winning and doing it the right way. And we're really looking forward to taking that next step with the kids this fall.
All right. So you mentioned the bits and pieces of this as you went, but as a head football coach, as an athletic director, as an athletic coordinator, one of the roles you have is developing your coach, coaching the coaches, getting the coaches ready for whatever is next for them. And that's something that I think in the state of Texas, the txhsfb, we do really well. But talk a little bit about specifically about that mentoring role.
Well, and I'm going to be honest. One of the things I'm most proud of, Tony, is I have 14 assistants that have gone on to be head coaches at some point. Now, some have had more success than others, and I'm not saying that I've taught them even a thimbleful of what they know. But I would like to think being around, I think a wise coach picks up from everybody they're around. Now, you're your own person, and when you're a head coach, you better do it your way, because you're going to get fired if you don't get the results that somebody wants. So if I'm going to get fired, I'm going to go down doing it my way. But yeah, you're exactly right. To me, I'll give you an example of what I do, and I'm a little bit different and go off the curve with this than anybody else. The first half of my career, the first part of my career, and I always kind of, when I look at my career, I cut it up into different sections. First 11 years before my dad got sick, I'm in the private schools. I'm in South Texas. I was very hands-on in off season. My voice was the voice that was always heard. Obviously, I was a younger coach, but I put the off-season program together. I controlled the off-season program. My coaches were told what to do, and they were at certain spots, and we did it that way. When I came back from being a principal, one of the things I feel like I had learned was there needs to be different voices. If my voice is the only voice that is heard all the time, then the best analogy I can give, it's like the Charlie Brown teacher. And I just think it drowns out. So I intentionally started finding younger, hungry coaches that obviously I'm not going to turn our off-season program over to just anybody, but as they would gain my trust, I would give them more and more responsibility, to the point now where obviously I'm in a 6A school that is growing rapidly. My strength coach and my assistant coaches are the ones that run off-season. Yes, I'm in there every day at some point, and I'm in and out because I'm also the athletic coordinator for other sports. And do I know exactly what's going on? Of course I do. I have exactly what each day is, what we're doing and where we're hitting. Before we got on this, I was just looking at who's running the drills, and we're starting with agility drills today and doing those things and which coaches are running it. But to that end, I've even encouraged our strength coach to do the same thing, where now he's not the only one leading all the workouts. We're rotating people through. And what you're doing there is you're building obviously strength, and you're building skill with your assistant coaches. You're giving them a voice, so the kids that are listening to them are seeing them more in a role of positional power. And make no mistake, and I say it all the time, when we get back to the fall, when the W's and L's start counting, my voice is the one that's going to be heard, and there's no doubt on who the buck stops with. But I feel like this last second part of my career, however long that's been, 18 years, 18 seasons, 17 seasons, it's benefited me well to do that. And I think that's a very hard thing to do, because as coaches, we want to control everything. And I know I do, and that's my personality, and I want to control, the environment. And obviously on game nights, you want to have control over the elements and the wind and the officials and your kids and the band and everything else. And so it's hard to give that up. But I firmly believe that doing that sort of thing has helped my guys grow. It's helped my guys get head football jobs. I'm very proud. Besides those 14, I've got 3 that have gone on to be ADs and 1 that's gone on to be a superintendent. Plus, I've got 1 former player that's a head coach. So you have to give people room to grow. Nobody, early in my career, I'd say nobody went to college to just stand around. If you're worth your salt, you went to college to get in and make a difference and get out here and coach. But it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to let go of that control.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about the Grizzlies football team. You were been improving. You got to competitive for the playoffs. Didn't quite make it last year. So, what do you have coming back? What do you think you'd look like for 2022?
Well, it's we've had to teach these kids how to win, and the reality is each situation is different. So let's say we had broken off Manville. And I use Manville as an example because when I was in Lamarck, we had some great battles with Manville. So I know firsthand what kind of athletes they have and still probably do. You don't have to teach those kids how to win. Those kids know how to win. And so you're taking a different approach from there. Right now, we come in here, we're breaking off from Oak Ridge. That's, there's not the level of success that the two examples I've used, Cy Ranch and we have to teach our kids how to win. So in that regard, yes, our numbers are great. We run 3 freshman teams, an A, B, and C team, and that's not the norm. I mean, that we have a lot of kids that we are getting to play football, and we run 2 JV teams, and then obviously our varsity team. So we have well over 300 kids in the program. On the flip side, we have not had a Division I. We're going through. We're ending our 4th year. So we had 2 independent and 2 in 6A. We still haven't had a Division I player yet. So we're 26-14 in those 4 years, and we haven't had Division I kid yet. And for 6A, that's kind of unheard of. Now, will I tell you we've had Division I kids go through here? Yes, I will. We're in an area where, unfortunately, trainers that just train people out on the side and select 7-on-7 have a degree of influence, and that is what it is. It's not complaining about it. That's just it's more of a transient thing, and we're a new program that is trying to get our footing. So that's okay. We're going to win with team guys. We're going to win with tough, smart, disciplined football players that want to get in and get after it and do things the right way. And we're right there, but this is Texas high school football. 6A it's tough. So I feel good about where we're at. We're going to have our first D1 kid come through this year. Brandon High is our fullback / tailback, but in our offense, he's a fullback. He had 1,300 plus yards last year. He has probably 20 offers. Well, he's the real deal. And there's kids coming up. Like I told you before, our freshman A team was district champs. There's good things happening, and it's a great district. It's a great area. I really enjoy it here. But it's not one where you came in and said, okay, to give an example, Bridgeland, that's Coach Ratfield does a great job over there. They broke off from Cy Ranch. Those cats were playing in a state title game 3 or 4 years before they opened up. That is not where we're at. In our district, to give you an analogy, College Park is the newest school to open before us. They just won their first playoff game this year, and it took 17 years. And so for us to be this competitive and knocking on the door right now, and to already have wins over Oak Ridge, Conroe, and Willis this past 2 years, that's a testament to our coaches and our kids, because I don't think there's any argument that if you come to a Grand Oaks game the last 2 years and you look at the teams on the field, we're not matching up size wise and obviously Division I kid wise with the other ones. That comes with building your program, and it's going to come, and those are things that we look forward to what's coming. But again, you've known me a long time, Tony. We're going to do it the right way. We're not going to take shortcuts. I'm a firm believer that you win football games with high character kids that do things the right way and that are going to do their job. And if you can't do your job, and if you're going to be silly and bring drama to the program, this is probably not the place for you.
Now you mentioned your fullback there that is going to be a name that we all are familiar with. What are some of the other kids that, if I come out and cover a Grand Oaks game, I need to make sure I know how to spell their name?
There's, of course, Brandon High is the running back, and Brandon's a great kid and love him to death. And he's the one with all the offers. On the defensive side, Braden Bradley is a 2-year starter that's returning, and we feel like he'll end up playing at the college level. We really, like last year when our defense came up, it was kind of, if you remember the no-name defense of the Dolphins back in the 70s, it was kind of a bunch of kids that just look like regular dudes, but they go out and they play hard and they play well. So, to that end, we have a receiver, Tristan Browse, that, he doesn't look like he's gonna wow you. He just looks like a regular guy, but he goes out there and he had 7 touchdown catches last year. And we've got O-linemen that just kind of, they're not small, but they're certainly not the biggest. Ty Lott, the kid that comes to mind. He started for us on and off for 2 years, and they're just kind of workers, and they're just kind of grinders, and it's that bubbling up of talent that's kind of coming as you build a new program. A perfect example is we have a defensive lineman, Jason Stone. I mean, he's been on varsity for 2 years, undersized as all get out. I think everybody always has that one undersized kid, but his motor is just, you can't stop him. You can't get him to slow down, and certainly we don't want him to slow down. So he's doing a great job. And then, we have some younger kids that are coming that are really, really talented. We have a corner, Ikenna Go, that was a sophomore last year, that he's a big time player. And, we're looking for big things from him. And then you look at our freshman class, which I've alluded to, and we have a 6'6" tight end in there, and Ty Root, that you remember that name, because he's going to be big time. And, his great genetics. Dad pitched in the major leagues. Mom played professional soccer and in the Hall of Fame at A&M. And the sister is going on a full ride to A&M on a college scholarship and graduating early next December. So, heck, I joke with him, man, you may be the worst athlete in your family and still go D1. So there's, again, and you know this, and anybody that really knows football knows this. We have it in place. We have the numbers. We're getting the kids out. It's the top end kids that, quite honestly, we just have to let them bubble up. And you win football games with numbers, but you also win it with top end talent. And that's coming. And that is finally getting there. And so our joke around here is we look forward to the day when we line up against district opponents and our offensive and defensive line are as big as theirs. And it hasn't happened in 2 years, and that's okay. Because we still have great confidence that in the grand scheme of things, if you give us, I have a great coaching staff. I really do. And they make me look a lot smarter sometimes than I probably am. And I feel like you give us equal talent, we'll scheme it up with anybody. And I feel like, quite honestly, in the last 2 years, we've probably beaten some teams that we shouldn't have beaten once we got into district. And so, again, we look forward to when those eye levels and pad levels are the same place, we feel like we're going to be more than just fine. I was about to say just fine. We feel like we're going to be more than just fine. But, having said that, we don't know how big everybody's going to be or what it's going to look like. I know there's some big boys around here, but feel like even if we're a little bit smaller, our kids still get after it. And we have to learn. Everything is a learning experience. Everything is know thyself, like I said before. We have to learn to, last year, it's as simple as this. We go into the last game, and it's our rivalry, Oak Ridge. We broke off from them, and when the school opened. And if we beat them, we're in. And quite honestly, we feel like the last 2 years, and the first year we didn't control our destiny. We had to have some help, and we didn't get it on the last day. But we felt like we get in, we're going the second round. This year, we felt like we get in, we're going the second round. And it's on us. We lost 21-14. Credit to them. They got after us. And, that's got to be a learning experience. You have to get in, and maybe, in hindsight, that's the growing pains of a young program. You have to learn when you get into those situations to step on their neck and break it. Figuratively, obviously not literally, but you have to seize that moment and take control of it. And just quite honestly, we did not. We didn't as coaches, we didn't as players, and we didn't as a program. So, everybody wants to go to playoffs. Everybody wants to have success. Everybody wants scholarships, everything else. Tony, again, you know me, I'm old school. Don't talk about it. Get to work, do it. And you haven't done it until you do it. And we haven't done it as a program yet. So we're right there. We're having great success, but, we got to do it.
Yeah. So one more question before I let you go, Coach. And this is the hardest one. One thing about Mike Jackson that most people don't
know. Okay. I'm gonna tell you two, because they kind of go hand in hand. I'll show you a trick here with the pen. So let me see if I can get it. All right. So you see that? We can do that. That comes from being able to twirl a drumstick. So I can, number one, I can play a drum set. If I wasn't a coach, I joke with my daughter all the time, who's in 9th grade, I should have went and been a rock star. Because I played in bands when I was growing up, and I can pretty much wail on the drums. I can go, and I don't have a drum set anymore. I don't get to do it much, but how much fun would it have been to been up in front of 100,000 people on stage and be part of Motley Crue or something like that? That would have been awesome. So that's one. The other one, it's by far the funniest thing ever, because I'm not an overly big guy, is for a period of 7 to 8 years in the late 90s. It was basically the mid to late 90s, maybe the early 2000s, in my 20s. I was a bouncer. And so that's what I would do. And of course, I was a big musclehead and stayed in the weight room all the time. And this is before kids and a wife. But one of my high school teammates got me into it. It was like 1994, and I'm living down on Richmond Avenue, which now it's Midtown and stuff. But back then it was Richmond Avenue was the place to be. And I go into a club, and I'm single, 24, 25, whatever. And he gets me, hey, you want to do this? So then I end up taking the job in Robstown. Well, the guy that owned the club I worked at there ends up owning 2 clubs in Corpus. So I'm the athletic director, head football coach at Robstown, and I'm 27 years old, and I'm also a bouncer during the summers. And so you can't make this stuff up. And the greatest story of all this is, I guess inflation and things, salaries have raised. In 1997, I made more money as a bouncer than I did as an athletic director, head football coach, because I'd been with that owner so long. I basically said, hey, I just want a percentage of the door. And so it got to the point, because it was a multi-level club. I was 28, I think, and most of the bouncers were 22 or 23. He wanted me in charge of them. So I kind of laugh sometimes, and seems like Roadhouse is always on TBS, or it's always on TV. And I'll tell my kids, they'll see pictures of me like, God, Dad, why aren't you rocked up like that now? Well, because I have to hang out with you jokers all the time and try to win games and do all that. And I've gotten older. But there was a time in my life where Roadhouse, short of all the killing and all that stuff, Roadhouse is pretty much what I was doing in that part of my life. So it was a lot of fun. And then I met my wife, and she put an end to all that, which wives are apt to do. So that's the two things. I can play the drums. I should have been a rock star. And then on the other end of it, I was working in nightclubs and making more money than I was coaching in my mid to late 20s. And I did get to meet some interesting people when they would come through Corpus. I got to meet David Lee Roth and Sir Mix-a-Lot and those sort of things when they would come play our venues. And so it was a whole lot of fun.
All right. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Coach, and best of luck in the future.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Love seeing you. Love visiting with you. I know you'll be out at our place tomorrow for the Division II SQT, and go Grizzlies.